So, we have ourselves a few days to go before the Detroit Red Wings start out their preseason, and with this in mind, I wanted to go over some of the final news and notes that we have seen out of a recent piece published by Max Bultman. So, this was from earlier this morning, I'm pretty sure, not this afternoon, but Bultman published this piece, Red Wings Roster Projection, where things stand after training camp, and it gives us a pretty interesting scoop as to what the Wings are looking forward to. Who's got a spot, who doesn't, and who has to fight a little bit harder. Now, as always, The Athletic is paid for premium material, so we're not going to go out there and screenshot this article. Instead, we're going over onto ProHockeyRumors.com because the morning notes published by Josh Erickson goes out there and summarizes the Max Bultman piece. Morning notes, Red Wings, Lardis, and offer sheets, it's all going to be here in the description. But opening things up, let's get into what Bultman has to say. Expect the Red Wings to open the season once again with 3 goalies on their opening night roster, writes Max Bultman of The Athletic. Now, before we continue, let's just verify it here. Jack Campbell is probably not going to be one of those 3. I'm sorry, he just doesn't have it in him anymore, it seems, and there are 3 other guys that pretty much need to get spots on this team in order for everything to work in harmony. Ville Husso needs to be in the Red Wings because he's so darn expensive. He is probably the guy that is going to be here not because he's any good, but because he straight up just has too much money attached to his name. It would be so embarrassing if they decided to send him down, or something like that. You also have yourselves Cam Talbot, who is supposed to be the starting guy. He is the best statistical goaltender as of the past few years amongst this group. And then you have yourselves Alex Lyon, whom, as we have talked about in a bunch of videos, was the main dude last year. He was the most reliable dude last year, and a lot of Wings fans loved the Lion King as a result. So, those are probably the 3 guys, right? Sorry, Jack Campbell, it's not your time. Sebastian Cossa, it's not your time yet. Trey Augustine, you're still in college, so that's kind of where things stand. With this in mind, though, let's go over into some other parts of the Wings roster. As GM Stevie Y has said this offseason, there is a lot of waiver math that will factor into what Detroit's 23-player list looks like when rosters are due on October 7th. Unless a prospect forces their hand, they'll turn in a combination of players that require exposing the least amount of talent to the wire, likely resulting in 3 goalies and 8 defensemen opening night without an extra forward. Now, because roster spots in the NHL are limited, there will need to be some sort of a preliminary elimination here or there. There are going to be guys that don't really show off too well in the preseason and as a result get sent down or reassigned to a junior team or whatever. Not surprising, it happens every year. This isn't really all too new news. I mean, there are a lot of dudes that will be trying out for spots, and Stevie Y is going to have to make a decision on who stays and who goes. That's not new, right? Well, let's get into some of the names that could or could not be in this discussion. There was no indication in rookie camp in Traverse City that fringe forward prospects Nate Danielson, Marco Kasper, or Carter Mazur were close to winning out a roster spot, Bultman said, although they'll still get some looks during the preseason. If they do make a waiver placement to free up a roster spot for one of the 3 or a PTO candidate Austin Watson, though, expect it to be Ville Husso, he added. The 29-year-old is coming off an injury-plagued season that limited him to 19 games, with an .892 save percentage and a .952 record. That would allow them to avoid placing defenseman prospect Albert Johansson on waivers, who will likely start the season in the NHL now that he's no longer waiver exempt. So this gives us a good opportunity to discuss each of the 3 guys that were brought up here and whether or not it will result in a Ville Husso waiver situation. That's the thing, right? We had just talked about how Husso is the worst statistical goalie out of the bunch, but the only reason he gets a pass is because he's so expensive. If there is another guy that forces the Wings' hand, though, then he may be the first one to go. It's not going to be Albert Johansson. They want to keep him around. He was a good player in the past few years of development that he has had, and as a result, I feel like he deserves his chance. It's him, Simon Edvinsson, these Swedish dudes, add on to Moritz Seider, so you got a bunch of European guys coming over here and dominating the blue line. It's a pretty good transition here for the Red Wings into the next generation. But of course, when it comes to these forward dudes, let's talk about the 3 here. Nate Danielson, Marco Kasper, and Carter Mazur. Danielson is coming off of a really good year with the Portland Winterhawks in the WHL, but as we have come to expect out of guys drafted and developed, going from the WHL into the NHL right away isn't really the easiest thing to do. even if you're a top 10 prospect like Nate Danielson was in 2023. Also, you kind of have to ask, is Danielson really a top 10 caliber prospect, or was he just a guy taken in the top 10? You could maybe make the difference there in your own minds. But Danielson was productive. He did show off very well in his draft plus 1 year. He kind of shut up a lot of the haters, myself included, in his point production and his crazy point streaks that he kept on going on. But if that immediately translates into the NHL, then I think we'd be more surprised than not. So him going to Grand Rapids, not a surprise. He'll be there. He'll develop. Hopefully he scores at least 30 points on the season. If he gets 30, I think I'm happy personally as a fan analyzing these prospects. That seems like a very natural progression for him to go through, whilst improving his defensive and physical game as well, and improving that north-south pace, because the WHL is filled with a whole bunch of teenagers and younger dudes. The AHL is a pro hockey league. It should be a lot more difficult here. Now, as for the other two guys, Marco Kasper is in an interesting spot as well, because he kind of plays similarly to Danielson, but he already has that year of AHL experience under his belt. He was pretty alright last year, 35 points, 71 games played, but he did come alive in the playoffs, Marco Kasper did. Lots to like out of him in the postseason for the Griffins and their run. But whether or not that translates into a spot overtaking any of the other Red Wings centers like Andrew Kopp or Joe Veleno, at this point in time, I don't think it's all too guaranteed, so having Kasper develop one more year before really exploding onto the scene in 2025-2026, I think is an appropriate course of action here. Also, Kasper is only 20 years old. He's got a lot of time to continue to get better. However, the points from last year, if that grows into, let's say, a 60-point season in 2024-2025, I think everybody's really happy about that. 55, 60 points, I think, should be where Kasper aims to go for. If he doesn't do that, then you have to start maybe dragging things out a little bit more in the AHL. He's alright though. I definitely do think Kasper has the capabilities of providing extra value. He already was a pretty refined two-way caliber center in the SHL and the AHL, so he's just got to get that point production up there, and then I think there will be a better opportunity for him to establish himself on the NHL roster. And then you have yourselves the other guy here I wanted to talk about, Carter Mazur, left-wing guy who had recently wrapped up a Grand Rapids Griffins rookie season of 37 points in 60 games played. Like Marco Kasper, though, Carter Mazur had a really good playoff run, 8 points in 9 games, to build off of the 6 points he had in 6 games with the Griffins in 2023. Carter Mazur, I feel like, he came out of nowhere. He was a third-round pick in the 2021 draft, eventually played in the NCAA and was really good over there for 2 seasons in a row, and now he's in the Grand Rapids Griffins scoring points and doing all of this at 22 years old. So obviously he's older, so there is more of a development path that he has gone through, but I definitely do think for Mazur, as one of these more underrated picks that the Red Wings made recently, he definitely provides value more than his draft stock would imply, and alongside of Danielson and Kasper, could be shaping up to make some really good things happen for the Griffins this upcoming year. Even if these guys don't make the NHL team right away, having them in the AHL altogether would give a lot of fans stuff to cheer about, and even more hype for the young prospects in the Red Wings organization. So if any of these guys make the team and Husso goes down on waivers, that'd be cool, but for now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this quick Red Wings update. How many points do you think these guys score in the AHL, and who is the best at the end of the day? When do you think they each make the NHL roster? Do you think it's all gonna happen? Because obviously there are prospects that sometimes they just don't make the jump. Are Mazur, Danielson, or Kasper any of those? You would hope that the other two wouldn't be because they were top 10 picks, but I digress. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about each of these 3 prospects and their development paths so far. I hope you enjoyed this video. 9 and bye.